system that is just very hard to understand. And all in all, the principle of organization, the development model, economy and values these people have who do this kind of software, that often causes suspicion. So in my most favorite story about making clear why there's suspicion, so Georg Greve told it to me, and he's president of the Free Software Foundation Europe, and he was once invited to some high-class policy congress, and the organizers there asked him to please be last in line to do his lecture because they feared that his GNU Linux presentation could destroy the beamer. And stories that is just not an exception, so that just happens all the time. And this results in the fact that people who do lobby or public relations for free software, they spend a great share of their time just in trying to kill prejudices and to create trust. But there's really no need to be suspicious because this being so different to classic economy or this being so different to classic values, that all has to do with the nature of non-material goods, and that all has to do with the nature of digital data spaces, because non-material goods, they grow by sharing, and that is, of course, completely different to the physical world. And so information grows if you let others participate. And in digital data spaces, this one main condition of economics does not apply, and that is that there is just no shortage. All free software programmers do is just they take advantage of these characteristics that the digital media or non-material goods offer. So just don't be afraid. How much time do I have left? Okay. 10 minutes? Okay, so some more reasons why free software open source hardly plays a role when it comes to bridging the digital divide. So I said some words on this because of your questions. So in the public sector, as I said, so you have lots of lobbyism. And so Microsoft plays a key role here, of course. So I don't know the exact number, but they have an extremely huge budget just to do lobbying. And I don't know, for example, what the budget is of the Free Software Foundation to do lobbying, but I think it's you just cannot compete with Microsoft in these issues. And then, as I said, there are lots of NGOs out there, civil society groups who deal in digital divide-related issues. And in order to work, they depend on funding, on sponsors. And again, so this is often, or very often, so free software community cannot, provide this now the words are lacking. So what I want to say is that, so of course, Microsoft is having much greater resources to satisfy these needs. And then there's another reason that, of course, there are NGOs out there who say that they value free software, and they say, yeah, we see it's having great potential, and we would love to use it, but we just cannot teach skills that the local labor market is not demanding, so that's the point. Okay, and then we have some internal reasons, of course, so, and the support theme, that's the all-time evergreen. So free software people always say, no, we have great support. Either you have a company who gives you support, and if you do not have that for the software solution, you are in need, so just go into the internet and you will find documentation and you will find people who help you, internet fodder, whatever, because that is, the core of this whole free software community. Problem is just that people who are not used to these kind of working structures, they are kind of confused because they are used to work with fixed structures and they want to have fixed responsibilities, while the message of free software is completely different. So you have to do some things on your own, and they have this network character. And this is often not, often, for example, the public sector companies, they say, no, this is not suitable for us. We just want to have clear responsibilities. Usability is an aspect, so of course there are really great free software pieces out there that are just great concerning usability. Just take whatever Debian-based operating system, Knoppix, Ubuntu, Kubuntu, they're great. Firefox, of course, everyone knows this one. And so, but you still have lots of open source projects out there where I often have the impression that the people who did this, they had themselves in mind as an intended audience and not people who just want to use the software. And that is such a sad point. So where are the girls? So again, here, I think computer IT, that's almost like an all-male thing. I read once a study and they found out that on the developer side, you have like 1.1 women, so rest is all male, and on the user side, I think this is not much better, so which is sad because, I mean, very few women decide to join the free software community, you know, to bring their skills in there, to learn, to pass their knowledge on. But I would say that we have responsibilities there on both sides, so why this is just not working out fine.
Hello? You can find the women, or part of them, on the IRC server free node in Debian Women.
I can find what there?
The women.
I know there are some, but I wouldn't say that the women are the majority here. Just, I mean, look around. So, okay. So, but since there are a lot of great advantages why free software is of great use, so I just put some reasons down. So, what helps to make free software open source mainstream? This is, of course, you know, just write great software. But I think this is maybe, you know, like 50%, just having good software. The other 50% is really just to raise awareness. So the activists I talked to in these interviews I made, so they really say that you just spend so much time just on, you know, bringing up this issue and to explain it to outsiders. And this is very important. You know, and then of course convince the NGOs, convince the CSOs, talk to them because, and of course convince the policymakers because they do all the decisions. And since we have this divide between people with a technological background who have all this great knowledge, valuable knowledge, and they have to somehow try to get their knowledge out of their community to the people who actually make the decisions. Integrate more women, I said that, and then what would be a good idea as well as, you know, win free software companies as sponsors for digital divide initiatives. So I know that Red Hat is pretty active there in Asia, especially in India, and so you can see that in this region of the world, open source is as well gaining market share and everything. Another reason would be, you know, so just copy the Brazilians because Brazilians did a great job, so they are very far ahead. So, but I might can talk about this later since time is running out. Just one more thing is that does free software, does open source equal development and growth? Well, of course not. So it should be seen as a means to an end, not as an end in itself, to have people online. And it is as well of very little use just to say, hey, poor countries, look, we have free software, it's so great, it's for free, just use it. So this is just not going to work. So there have to be local structures that secure the maintenance and the development and the use of free software, of open source. And one more thing I want to say, that this whole digital divide debate is really, so I'm pretty critical about this. So I think, yes, it should be an issue. It is important since access to information is very important and it can help to promote, you know, more sustainable development. But what I see, or I've read lots of books about it, and so I often had the impression that the people who work in these issues, they kind of think that, provide poor people with an internet account equals development and economic growth, and this is definitely not the case. So it can help in a lot of cases, but it shouldn't be an ideology. Okay, so thank you for your attention, and if there are questions.
So I just want to say, I think that you're right in that free and open source software, back here. I think that free and open source is a part of the solution, but I don't agree with everything you've said. I mean, you said that software cost was a big part of the problem in developing countries, but Microsoft can and does offer vastly reduced prices for poor countries. There's also the fact that many people don't even have power, they don't have internet access. So I don't think that's the whole solution. And as far as preventing brain drain from these companies, I don't think that open source software will do that. I mean, sure, it provides an opportunity for people to contribute to something, but as far as making money, contributing to the development of Linux is not going to make me money. And the companies that are offering support and making the money, those are hiring people who have university educations. And the brain drain is most important when you're losing the best people, the most intelligent, the brightest people. And those are the people who will continue to go to the developed countries that have the universities. And so until we get universities, university programs, open source software can't stop the brain drain.
Thank you. So my goal here was not to say that we have to have everything using free software. So the point is that I want to make is that in this whole digital divide debate, people just do not talk or hardly talk about software issues at all. And that is, I think, a very big mistake. The other thing you said that the brain drain cannot be counteracted. So I think it does offer certain advantages because if you want to use the free software, you want to work with free software, you have very low barriers because if you just want to try out information technology and if you want to mess around with source code, you want to do that with proprietary software, you need to buy very costly licenses and everything. And so you have very high barriers then. And if you just want to try it out and get into it, so why not start with free software because you have very low barriers. And this openness, I think it's a very, very great advantages. And this is actually, of course, the whole philosophy that made the internet, become a success story. You find this again in the mechanisms of the free software community, because the reason why the internet became such a mass medium is because everything was open. We had open protocols, and so everyone just, could mess around and do things with it. And you have the same, and it became a success story. And you have the same mechanisms and philosophy with free software. So you have very low barriers just to get started.
You said that just implementing free software and giving people internet access does not equal economic growth. Well, of course, that formula would be too simple, but I would imagine that having access to something like the internet for people who have needs would have a lot of developments following, because they could, if they wanted, just run schools because all the material is there. If, of course, the language barrier is down a little. If there's some kind of internet language spoken, they could just do that, or they could research on whatever they wanted. And I wanted to know, are there any studies? Has there been field work on projects where communities have received internet and nothing else has happened, or, has there been any work on this?
I know some projects in Africa, for example, and what they do is that and there's a NGO, it's called Geek Corps, and so they set up, internet connections. And because in Africa, a lot of people just do not own